AudioLab devlog number 9. I had a little bit less of a productive 3 weeks than usual, just because I wasn't able to find quite as much time to work on this as normal. I just have so much else going on, but I still got a bunch of stuff done. So I once again kind of had 3 main areas of focus. First one I spent a whole lot of time on was I wanted to get every bfxr sound from Foresight Fight working well enough to convert to my general synth and have that play in the game instead of this. So if we go into the Foresight Fight assets folder, let's start with byte, that bfxr sound. I did a little bit of this exercise before. I showed you this for the set of convergence sounds and then showed that these just didn't really work very well at all. This conversion I think is pretty much done. There are a couple of little quirks here and there. But yeah, I'll just show, sure, yeah, okay, so this is involves noise, so therefore play with the seeds a little bit to make it sound better if necessary. This was the most complicated sound in my entire set. I had to do some, it plays pretty well. It's still a little different. This sounds smoother for some reason. I wonder why that's still so different. I don't actually know. What does it look like? I'm not going to be able to tell. Well, yeah, I can see that this slope is much sharper here than here. This might be fixable. I thought I was closer on this one than the other. Anyway, this specific sound, cast spell, this gave me the most trouble of anything. So I showed that gigantic math function. Do I still have it open? This is main.c. No, okay, so that would be main.c of which project? AudioLab? Okay, so I would want audio synth, because that's the library version of this. Or no, I wouldn't. This is in AudioLab. The library doesn't contain the bfxr conversion. That's just here. Yeah, so I showed this nightmare of a function here before. It's even more of a nightmare, much larger, and works better. But just that there's all this math to do with bfxr conversion stuff. It all works pretty well. But yeah, so I just kept tweaking this and loading audio that didn't come out sounding the same and figuring out why and redoing the math for whatever. Right up until all of my Foresight Fight sounds converted okay. So yeah, this was the last one that I got mostly working. I think it's good enough. That one gave me so much trouble. Anyway, challenge activate. Sounds pretty good. It's a little smoother here. All these just small differences, like that's kind of hissier. Okay, yeah, just little nuances, but I mean, again, these are 2 completely different systems. I have them synchronized pretty well, and like, the difference is, even if it's perceptible, that's fine. I don't need identical results here. Just something that's good enough to be more or less the same sound. And honestly, I don't even need that. Like, it's an artistic choice to have whatever I want the sound effects for Foresight Fight to sound like. But I just want a starting point that puts me basically where I was with the capabilities of this synthesizer to mess with stuff if I want. You're probably seeing some new stuff here if you're looking closely. I'll talk about that as I get to it. But yeah, so I had to rearrange my pipeline a little bit. One of the main problems and why my audio wasn't lining up when converting it was that I was doing things at the wrong... Oh, dang it, this still doesn't fit. I guess I need to like truncate that or something. Or just auto-generate a shorter string. bfxr compression. Why do I have the word compression in there twice? I don't need that. Yeah, anyway, so I just had to rearrange things. So the high-low pass filter is now a wave modifier instead of a signal filter, which basically means that it's applied to the wave shape before the frequency curve and envelope have done their work. Same with phaser, which is not involved with this particular sound. But anyway, yeah, so rearranging those things was key to making these 2 systems line up well. I fixed that one thing where it turned out it was the phaser offset. There was a bug with it that made the beginning of sounds like this. I forget which sound in particular it was, but there was one that I loaded and had a, an attack shaped like that, but then when I converted, it was more like that or something. Anyway, so that's all working. Sounds pretty good. Yeah, so let's see. This involves compression. Yeah, so all of this, compare the SFXer feature set that I had mostly working last time. I think I didn't quite have fa offset and fa ramp all the way there. All these extra sliders were a lot of stuff, and extra radio buttons. I don't have all of these yet, but I have enough. Were the things I needed to have working for this to get where it needed to go. Charge health. You've never heard this in Foresight Fight because it's in a scenario I have not shown. I will someday. Charge spell. Yeah, that one's pretty much perfect. Perfect. Perfect with the consideration of white noise seed and stuff. This is a multi-track bfxr document, which I don't yet have a UI in here for editing and like seeing what the tracks are with bfxr. If I messed with this, what would happen? It would change nothing. That's right. Okay. Yeah, the UI is so unconnected for bfxr multi-track that all I can do is load and play the file and convert it. I can't actually edit it here in this UI, so that's a big to-do for this screen. It's not going to be a huge deal, because like I made the UI components for that here. I can just reuse these over in, oops, not the sequencer screen, the SFXer screen. I just have to wire it up. 20 and 21. So those were the ID numbers that were in my bfxr sound file. I don't know why it's like 20 and 21 instead of, let's say, 0 and 1 or 1 and 2 or something, but that's what was there. I'm just taking the data that I have. Anyway, yeah, so it splits out the multi-track, and I can edit those separately if I want, uh-oh, this doesn't fit. Oops. Okay, that was a last-minute change that I forgot to tweak for something. All right, well, it's fine. It can just hang out of the window a little bit if it needs to. I will fix. Yeah, so like I can change the seed for the second component of that, or the first component of that, whatever. Anyway, so multi-track bfxr works just fine. This was another one that gave me a lot of trouble. It's still a little different. More than I think is explained by random seeds. Whoops. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. Ooh, that takes a moment to generate. I can see when I click there, it hangs for a second because I have super sample active. I found that super sampling was only necessary to get the bfxr sound, the sound of bfxr in here if I was using pink noise, white noise, or bit noise. All the other samplers, well, I have my own anti-aliasing, which kind of does the job of super sampling for like, the sawtooth or pulse wave or whatever. Look how low this goes. Like, there's a lot of hanging out way down here and not so much up here for some reason. Well, then the opposite right in that spot. No vibrato. Oh, vibrato was a nightmare. I got it right finally, but oh, that was a major problem. Okay, so fire and cast spell are still a little bit questionable. I think those could use a bit more work. Not entirely sure what's wrong with them, but something is. This has a duty sweep on it, doesn't it? Yeah, so wave duty. That automatically generates a controller bound to the waves duty. Oh, hey, I can see the anti-aliasing happening here. Oh, right, and it gets a little confused at the preview because this is going into the negative and... so anti-aliasing... That's a surprising result. It's not really relevant to anything, but just... Drawing this portion of the wave shape is weird because I'm like drawing something that never exists. The wave sampler expects to start here and continue from there, and some parts of it need to know about its previous state to continue, because like this really should go down there and draw over there. I should fix that. Do something about it. Like, just show this. It's complicated. But I should do something because it just looks wrong. I'll do something. There's an amplitude slider on this now, by the way. So you can change the amplitude of the wave in addition to the amplitude of the overall sound, and that is meaningful. Anyway, so this one converts perfectly. What was that? Haste. Hit. Sounds great. Lose and counter. You can hear that without me talking over it. Menu accept. Ooh, this was fun. Okay, I want to show a thing here. Why does this look so different? Because the way bfxr truncates sounds is a little different from how I do it. My sound length, well, that's a complicated topic. I'll talk more about it a little bit. So sfxr just tries to synthesize until it... Basically, it keeps going in quantized units of like some size, you know, blocks that are larger than just one sample at a time. And when it gets to the end of a block and determines that it's done outputting audio, that's where the audio ends. So that's why there's a bunch of silence here, because either it's a block alignment thing, like you got what would be the end of the sound at the middle of a block and it had to do the rest of the block there to output it, or like the end condition wasn't quite met during the silence here. But just the way I do it is the amplitude envelope right now determines what the overall length of the sound is. This is going to have to change, but right now that's what it is, and it just ends immediately upon the end of the amplitude envelope. Anyway, so that's why those look so different. However, this particular sound, I had a little incident with my Foresight Fight bfxr sound data integrity, and my menu accept actually, or it was this menu accept, yeah, actually sounded like that. So if you compare, that is a different frequency, and I wasn't sure which frequency it was based on the bass freak here. Do I still have bfxr here somewhere? I want to start it up and maybe even load that sound. Where are you at? Program files, x86 probably, bfxr, here we go. So I open U. What I was working with here was, yeah, so I used this UI for making Foresight Fight sounds originally. How do I even open a file here? Load from disk. Desktop. Oh, look at this file dialog. This is different from mine. So like menu accept.bfxr sound was a square wave. Yeah, so I either like didn't click the save to disk button or didn't do the voodoo in this UI to get it to save the right thing to disk. Because like if I clicked that and saved to disk, it would have saved this instead or something. This thing's name is paste now because apparently loading a file just like pastes it in and doesn't preserve the whatever name was in here. Anyway, so I had not correctly saved the source file for the for that particular sound and one other, the menu direction as well. So if I change that to syn, it's close, but it's the wrong frequency. And if I just mess with bass freak, what's bass freak called in this frequency? You know, I can play it by ear and try to get the right frequency, but my playing by ear and attempting to reproduce this file based on what I was hearing in the Ogg Vorbis output that I already had in Foresight Fight, which you know what that sounds like. Here, let's start Foresight Fight. Well, that's direction, but it's that sound. Boop. That was an imperfect process and led to that being my actual file on disk rather than this. So, I was lucky enough that my menu sounds all had the same parameters except for frequency, I think, so I just had to change the frequency to reproduce them. So, to fix that problem and get a properly intact bfxr sound with the same frequency as my Ogg Vorbis file, I added a little feature in here that I think is extremely handy. There's no real UI for it. I just right-click in my waveform. And then from here, this was surprisingly easy to implement for how complicated it might seem. Go away, I don't want you to do that. So I can browse for a file. Let's go to Projects, Foresight Fight, Resources, Audio. Why are you in icon view? I don't want you to be, but it doesn't really matter. And now you're in this view. Whatever, doesn't matter. And I can go to menu direction. This is accept. Menu accept.og. I can load og vorbis, wave, stem audio, sfxr sound, or bfxr sound. And any one of those will give me a reference waveform overlay here. So I loaded the og vorbis file with these parameters and moved this slider around until they lined up. Is that correct alignment? Pretty close. Close enough that I can't tell the difference. So yeah, I think the exact value is 0.385 base freak. I can't directly enter a numeric value here, and this only goes to 2 decimal places instead of 3. Speaking of which, I should really have this be able to go to more decimal places. There's more room in this field, but the purpose of it is so you can have numbers like that and still have them fit, like 2 digits here and a minus sign. Where's my I-beam cursor? Don't I have one of those for this? Oops. Well, I messed up the base freak, but whatever. What was it? 0.385, I think. My cursors ain't working. Why is that? Okay, my cursors aren't working. Did they ever? I think they did. Maybe they never did in this application. Anyway, so cursor management, something for me to fix. Anyway, so that overlay is pretty powerful for fixing stuff like this, and that was how I was able to get an intact bfxr sound for that. Same deal with the menu direction. Oh, right, and if I right-click again, the overlay goes away. What's wrong with this one? Well, let's find out. Compare this to... Oh, it doesn't remember the directory that I was in. Of course it doesn't. Okay, see... Projects, Foresight Fight, Resources, Audio, Menu Direction.og. So apparently this is supposed to sound like... that? Yeah, it's a little different. Anyway, so that was how I was able to fix those, and that was the purpose, one of the purposes that I implemented this overlay for. This can have all sorts of different possible uses, though. It was surprisingly easy to do. Fairly trivial, since I already had audio loading and waveform drawing code. All I had to do was just connect them together, have this draw a second waveform, and line the two up. It was neat. Anyway, so that's the menu. Okay, so that's now remembered my desktop as the directory I was in. Oh boy. File management. Foresight Fight, assets, audio. I was at menu accept. Is that the good one or the bad one? That's the good one, right? Yes, so that one's fine. Because this directory is in version control and I've already fixed it there. Menu cancel. Sounds great. Menu direction. That's the fixed version, sounds great. Menu reject. A lot lower frequency, sounds great. Menu reorder. All these menu sounds are very simple, but very effective. Just a sine wave, very short, with a little envelope on it. But I'm real happy with those. There are a lot of these sounds I want to replace. I think those are staying as they are, because I think they work very well. Plague Bite sounds great. It looks a little different, but I think that's, again, just the different way the audio is clipped. No, it's not. There's something else. Frequency curve, downward. I don't know, some of this stuff is just a complete mystery to me. No, that is. Oh, well, maybe. Why would this clip earlier, though? Reasons. Anyway, that was Plague Bite, another sound. I haven't actually shown what it's for in Foresight Fight, because it's in a scenario that I have not shown. Potion. Sounds great. Potion 2. Sounds great and slightly different just because of when this resets its frequency. What is that? Is that the repeat speed? ARP repeat, not that one. Repeat speed. So without repeat speed, it just does that. But repeat speed determines when this resets. Apparently when that resets... Let's see, how well can I explain this? It restarts from a different phase of the wave sampler. So instead of continuing from like this part of the sine wave that it's sampling from, when it resets, apparently bfxr decides to basically start a new wave sampler or start over from the beginning of the sine wave. And so you get this artifact, this sudden jump, and those two click sounds you're hearing are because of that. But the way mine works, it keeps its position within the sine wave, so it looks much smoother and sounds that way too. So no harsh transitions between reset points there. So here, I think this is a place where I'm doing better than bfxr during the conversion. It's subjective. You might want those harsh transition points. Just depends on the sound you're going for. But anyway, for this use case, I prefer my way. Regenerate tick. Sounds great. Reset scenario. Sounds almost the same, but there's a slight difference. This one has a little bit more of a, like, hiss to it. This one's smoother. Like some kind of resonance audible at the beginning. I don't know. Just these little tiny differences. Again, it's kind of subjective. It doesn't matter much, but it does make me wonder if my conversion is imperfect or if that's just a consequence of the different implementations. Hopefully this is the last time we're going through this exercise. I think it's interesting, but with this I've converted every SFXer and BFXer sound that is in existence in my prior projects, and I won't have to mess with these again. Anyway, so that was reset scenario. So encounter setup. Sounds great. Save encounter setup. Sounds great. Screenshot. Is this multi-track? No, it just has a ARP in it, as it calls it. A stair step, as I call it. Sounds great, mess with the random seed if you want. Scurry. This is multi-track. In bfxr itself, scurry sounds a little different, just because of the way random seeds work. So this is my bfxr implementation, not actually lining up with the official one. Yeah, let's see what a bfxr multi-track file looks like in bfxr itself. So that was scurry. Where are you at? Yeah, that sounds quite different. Whoop. And that's just playing... Excuse me. What the heck? Oh, I have to like go to the mixer tab and then load from disk? How is this? And now that turned blank when I deselected and reselected it. bfxr. Do not like this program's UI. There. Okay, so this actually got the 4 instances of... Well, but this menu didn't fix itself. What are these bound to? They're blank. Changing tabs there and back now just breaks everything. You can see why I had some problems with this program. Anyway, but at least my data's intact, and I'm able to convert it. And to make this sound better, I wanted all 4 of these different. I think in the one I ended up putting into Foresight Fight. By the way, Foresight Fight is now running with all stem audio sounds instead of AUGs. It sounds the same, but... Okay, you can hear a little bit different in that, like, swooshy attack sound. That one, that's audibly different from the AUG version. But anyway, yeah, so all of my AUGs are now stem audio. And I think that's nice. Anyway, right, and for scurry, I wanted all 4 of these to sound different, so I think I just went to each track and... Here, let's actually load the one I ended up... Yeah, so I went through the process of taking all those bfxr sound files and pressing the convert button, making little tweaks as necessary. And now here in audio, I have scurry.bfxr... .stemaudio. Removed the extra blank track that was in the file for some reason, so this is seed 1. Right, that closes the window each time. This is seed 2. Let me guess, this is seed 3? No, it's seed 5. I guess seed 3 didn't sound good to me. And this is seed 1 again. Okay. It works. Anyway, so yeah, it's converting this still as a manual process. I mean, I could have, since I had the bfxr synthesizer here, I could have for, months now, used these files in Foresight Fight and loaded them, synthesized them at runtime with my synthesizer here, and skipped the part where I convert them to my own implementation. But I didn't want to do that. I had reasons for doing it how I did it. Slow. That's a sound I don't like, but it's there. This one will, 99% sure I'm going to replace that. It just doesn't sound like much of anything to me. Spell failure. Sounds great. Spew. Sounds great. Start encounter. Sounds great. Start encounter new. Oh, this one's interesting, isn't it? I don't like the sound. 99% sure I'm going to be replacing it, but this does something interesting when converted. So here's, again, the bfxr version. Kind of goes... So it's like up and then down a little bit. But when I convert it, it just goes up and up and up. Best I could figure out, this has to do with the way bfxr... the way it handles limits on frequency, like I'm actually hitting a maximum on frequency with this upward ramp. Really? From that low bass frequency with barely any upward ramp? That can't possibly be right. Wait. What is happening here? Why does it still do that? Is this... It's something else. It has nothing to do with the frequency ramp. Wait, what am I even hearing? This is white noise. What's making that, like, high-pitched resonance? So there's vibrato, yes. What if I remove that? I can still hear the up, down. And it's still just up, up there. Is this... This is fascinating. High-pass filter ramp is 0. So with high-pass filter gone, it does that. LPF resonance? LPF resonance. That's what it is. Hey, this might be fixable because I have this SFXer high-low pass filter here using the same algorithm as that I thought, but apparently my resonance works differently. Ooh, you got an extra little, like, in there. Huh. What is that even? There, now it sounds the same. Okay, so it's the resonance that's causing the high frequency, whatever the heck that is. Fascinating. Okay, that's interesting. This one might actually be fixable. Yeah, this is the one that is most inaccurate with my current conversion. Again, I'm probably replacing the sound, but I'd still like it to be accurate, just to be accurate. Start puzzle. I don't think I use this. It converts fine, though. Start scenario. This is identical to start puzzle, isn't it? But at half the amplitude. Yes. Well, it converts fine, whether I'm using it or not. Start scenario. That's the one I just loaded. Sting. Sounds great. Where am I? Sting. Sword swing. There we go. So we can hear the difference there. Some of it is random seed. Maybe that's all of it. Some of it might be different curve shape, because while I know I'm starting and ending at the same points, the in-between for curved frequency curve might not line up exactly. I know for a fact that it does not with vibrato, because I've explained before, SFXR's vibrato shape is not a sine wave, but mine is. But I got that to start and end at the same point, and it sounds convincing enough. So as close as it needs to be. Turn start enemy. That one always worked. That's extremely simple. That's just a... okay, it does have one bit of harmonics in it, so I had to make sure that that stuff was there. And I guess a little bit of... What's this? Is that high-low pass? It is. If I disable U, that goes away. All right, anyway. So that one works fine. Turn start friendly. Avoids this little click because of the... Oh, this doesn't have repeat speed. So just the ARP speed mod does that on its own. Interesting. Okay. Well, anyway, when I change frequency, I keep my position in the sine wave, so the transition is less harsh. Where was I? Turn start friendly. Unlock. This is unused. This was my original attempt at an unlock sound before I used the actual recorded padlock. I'll talk about that in a second. The particular bit noise filter, this is the first bit noise sound I've played here all day. I have an implementation that, yeah, so bit noise is just same as white noise, but only 2 values ever. But it turns out what bfxr uses for it is something a little bit more specialized. Whoa. Okay, it's still set to bfxr multitrack. That's why it's that's why my reset didn't reset. Yeah, apparently this is mimicking some kind of particular piece of hardware and like just going at the same frequency with my hashing algorithm comes up with something that sounds very different. But the frequency is right. So that's a little bit of an imperfect inversion. I could copy the algorithm for bfxr. That's an option, but I haven't done that. I've done something different. Unlock 2. That one is used as half of the... yeah, close enough. The other half of the padlock unlock sound. It's funny. Originally, I started this project in order to process my recording of a padlock to apply the slowdown and equalization and combining with this sound. I ended up doing the opposite. Now it does everything except that. Use item. Sounds great. Maybe I'll get around to including that too. That's an unused sound. That was supposed to be a used item? Well, no wonder it's unused, because it doesn't sound like anything. It sounds like something, but doesn't sound like using an item. Venom sounds great. That was another complicated one that took me a while to get right. Venom tick sounds great. Win encounter sounds great. Anyway, yeah, so I made an attempt. Yeah, right here, padlocked attempt.stem audio. I think I loaded up the, yeah, let's try this. Okay, so I'm going to load desktop. There you are. I loaded up an overlay for this of the AUG output of my combined sound, which I talked about this a lot. Again, this was what kicked off this entire project, and it kind of took some turns and ended up in a very different place from where I started. But the original purpose was to process this sound, which I don't have a way to play the overlay. But yeah, so I put the overlay together here and just tried to make something with roughly the same character it's nowhere close at all. So I have like a, what do I have here? Let's solo this. Right, so that's just that part of the track. Let's solo this. So that's just a spline drawing out something approximating the waveform shape that I see here. I could right-click to get rid of the overlay, but I don't want to. Using white noise, the chord, and a phaser, apparently, just trying to get something vaguely resembling the padlock sound there. And then a little bit of, what is this, sawtooth or something? No, harmonic sine with some frequency. For just a little bit of like a metal clank sort of thing. Anyway, so this was my attempt. I didn't spend a huge amount of time with it and didn't get incredibly far on it, apparently. Tracks, that's the view I want. So basically just this showed me that I can't really easily reproduce using these tools the sound of a padlock opening recorded from the real world for a lot of reasons. And I'm thinking about what to do about that. I could implement a wave sampler here that takes an audio... mouse move events. Do I just have no mouse move events at all? That's why my cursor's not working. I have no mouse move events going through on Windows. Mouse dragged works. Mouse moved does not. Oh, okay. Well, that explains the cursor thing. Anyway, so I could have one of these that... Ooh, I have to... Is this a program state thing, or is it always like that? It was a program... Ooh, I got my program into a state where I stopped having mouse moved events. I wonder how I did that. Huh. Okay, well that's interesting. Yeah, and now I have an I-beam cursor. Ooh, so I did this early. Okay, well I have video record of it, so I can try and figure out what I did. All right. Anyway, so yeah, I could have a wave sampler that takes an audio file and puts it together with a layer of, you know, the second thingy there, which was, what was it? I forgot my directory again. Of course it did. Projects, Foresight Fight, assets, audio. I wanted unlock 2. Right, so we looked at all those now. So, you know, have a track there. Well, I could have just loaded the, well, here I'm going to reset my directory again. That's fine. I was done there. So just have track 1 be the recording and track 2 be this. And right here in this UI, you know, I could have a signal filter applied to that track that does the, well, it'd be the frequency set to, let's see, 1/4, I guess, would be, oh, what am I doing? Well, something. 1/4 would be, so 3 is half, 2 would be 1/4. I'm editing the wrong thing here, but you know, I can't. I'm just talking about something. Yeah, so have the actual recording in there, down pitched with frequency, and then implement a signal filter that does the equalization, which I haven't figured out yet how to do, but I will. And just involve actual recorded PCM data as part of my my stem audio file. That's an option, and it might be the one I end up going with. So I'm still thinking about that. And why I was talking about length there is because, like, if I have PCM data in here, I need to be able to control length in a different way than an amplitude envelope, because, like, the PCM data will have its own amplitude envelope that comes with it. So I guess that's unpleasant. Should have seen it coming. Whatever. I guess I should just have this be able to automatically take the length from an audio file here, something. I don't know. There's some program design stuff to still figure out there. Anyway, so all that to say, I got this to do part of its purpose. So all Foresight Fight sounds are now working correctly with the this system underneath instead of loading audio data. So that's nice. Except for the padlock, which I haven't dealt with yet because it involves real recorded audio. So that was focus number 1. 2 and 3 are a lot shorter. Number 2 was to write another piece of music with this and expand on the UI a little bit. I added some colors in here, just so I could tell which is which. Quarter notes are red, 8th notes are blue, 16ths are green, 32nds are orange, 64ths are cyan. If you know something about other games I play, you might recognize that set of colors, or if I change this to that kind of time signature, we get like purples and stuff, different purples, just so I know where I am, so that's helpful. And I added a cool thing here that I like, where like if I was changing this, I have a new UI here that shows an actual piano keyboard. Just so I can input things that way instead of with my keyboard, which is kind of real awkward. One of these days I'm going to get this hooked up to MIDI input so I can hook up a real actual piano keyboard like MIDI controller and just press buttons on that and have the input come through here, but I haven't gotten that far yet. So yeah, I've created this UI element and wired it up to this, but I can't like input notes here with it or anything. So I got about that far and did a little bit of other UI cleanup with this and attempted to write a piece of music that I just ended up absolutely hating, so much that I'm not going to show it here. So not every attempt goes as well as the first one that I was so happy with. But anyway, I spent a little bit of time on the sequencer screen, cleaned it up a bit, but had my focus elsewhere. My number input is not going anywhere because this is eating it. There we go. I have to click here and then I can change screens. Focus number 3. Third thing I did was just to generally clean up this UI here and make it a little nicer to use. One of the things that kept bothering me was when I'd switch, like I'd put something in here and then decide, okay, so here's a pulse wave that I want to use for something. Oh, I need to add a modifier to this. If I don't remember to click the copy button and go over to modified, then oops, it changed back to a sine wave and all my work on the pulse wave is gone, which wasn't much, but it was something. But I just made it automatically take the last thing that was there when I switched the menu from a non-layered one to a layered or modified one, and vice versa. So if I want to get this pulse wave back out just by itself, I can just go over there and, just makes it a little easier. Anyway, and I made it so that I can reorder my pop-up windows properly, even with embedded multi-layered stuff. Here, you be quiet. So, you know, this window is a child of this window because I have a modified wave sampler in a layered wave sampler with its own window, but I can reorder them properly and move them around, put them partially off screen. This is as far out as they go. Get them out of the way of stuff. And I just sort of generally cleaned up the paradigm of like choosing type here next to the list and copy and paste buttons. Because you saw what I had before, it was a big mess. But it's all, when there's a graph, it goes at the top. When there's a type selector, it goes here instead of here. When there's copy and paste, it goes next to the type selector. This is a little wider to fit text, although as we saw, it's not wide enough, so I need to either like truncate or just use shorter strings in the first place or something. This space looks blank because it's there for a scroll bar. I guess when the scroll bar's not there, I can move these out to the edge. Maybe that'd be better. Maybe it'd be weird. I don't know. And I did a thing where all the sliders now have steppers next to them. Right, if I turn this back on. And I tried to make the steppers choose reasonably intelligent values here. So this goes by, there are 12 steps between 5 and 4. Matching piano keys for everything that is frequency. I think if I hold, okay, there are some modifier keys that do things. What does shift do? Shift goes a lot farther at once. What does control do? Goes less far. Control shift goes way farther. And then alt, this is an interesting one. Let me choose a better slider than that. There are a lot of things. Yeah, okay, so actually the amplitude envelope is a good example here. There are a lot of things that I want to be able to go out of the prescribed range for what I've set these sliders to. You know, I want them to have a finite range just so that, you know, something makes sense for dragging them over. But there's no reason at all that you wouldn't be able to have an amplitude envelope that has, you know, a sustain portion that's longer than 1 second. So now if I just hold the Alt key and drag further, I can just take the slider beyond its normal bounds. I was thinking I might have a thing where, so I just have this little orange indicator here to show this is something other than what it's actually showing. And if I start Alt dragging from here, then it chews through the excess before it starts letting me drag again. Oh yeah, and if you go into the negative, weird things are going to happen because the math isn't going to know what to do. Anyway, ooh, that's fun. Wonder why it does that. I don't know, doesn't matter. And then by the same token, if I alt click the stepper, it can step beyond, or if I just click it normal, it'll clamp. So yeah, you know, I have the text field, the stepper, and the slider, 3 different ways to modify thingies. Someday I'm going to have it so that like there's a mouse button or a hotkey or something I can click here and just open this up and rewire it, because like, let's say you're doing a whole bunch of work that involves a sustain length that's like 2 seconds or between 1 and 2 seconds, and you want to be able to actually see that slider range. It'd be nice to be able to, you know, go into the guts of the UI and just say, well, I want this sustain slider's range to actually be 0 to 2 instead of 0 to 1, so that I can just drag it around and see that. So that's a thing that I'd like to do at some point for all these little, you know, quadruplets of thing, you know, edit text, stepper, slider, and label. No, this is a step along that way. So yeah, that's a little nicer. And I think that's pretty much it. That's about all that I did. I made a little bit of progress on my tile editor, but it's nothing worth showing. I was focusing much more on this, so I want to get this to where it needs to be. So yeah, immediate future for me is to continue trying to empty my to-do list. Just try to get it to where it needs to be, so that I can actually call it done and put it out somewhere. There's a whole bunch of just like not very interesting work, like I need an undo feature. Nobody ever wants to implement undo, at least I sure don't. Undo is just a big pain. Like, it's a real important feature to have, but it's just an extremely unfun thing to implement. At least it always has been for me. You know, I need to like put a little thing up here when I have a modified file, and you know, if I've changed some parameters, I should be prevented from just clicking that and closing. I already have the architecture for this in Foresight Fight. You know, if I go into the scenario editor and oops, yeah, that's fine. Mess around with this and, you know, change something, sure. Oh boy, how do I even play Foresight Fight? Sure, default to empty. So this has changes, this has a little star here in the window. If I click this, it doesn't let me exit until I decide what to do about that. So, you know, the architecture's there. It's just not wired up in AudioLab right now. But yeah, little UI stuff like that. I'd like to get this messy pile of buttons into, like, let's say some pull-down menus or something, like where they'd normally go. Open, save, revert, etc. I don't have a revert button. I should have one. Yeah, so stuff like that is standing between me and an empty to-do list for this project. But in the meantime, I don't have to have this thing fully released and usable for people who are not me. Oh yeah, so this thing I'm doing with my hotkeys here, I should have some other way of navigating screens, and I don't currently know what that is. Maybe like tabs at the top? Vertical space is kind of precious though, and I don't want to use it. Although, it could be less precious if this UI actually would scale or, you know, adapt or something other than just leave blank brown space out there when I resize the window. So that's another thing on my list. But anyway, since this tool is good enough for me right now, more or less, I do want to be working on writing a Foresight Fight soundtrack and soundtracks for the other games that I'm working on. And during that process, I'm sure I'll see lots of stuff to change in the sequencer and synthesizer. And the thing will just get evolved that way. So, yeah, just working on it. Things are happening, trying to get my to-do list empty. And I'll see you next time with progress.